Today is the birthday of an enterprising chess player from India. He is an international master, and some of you know about him already, but some of you are new to chess and are catching up. So we thought that this is a great opportunity for us to introduce you to this amazing chess player from India. So I have some games with me and I'm going to show you some of his moments, and this video is like the celebration of his existence. So we are so happy that we have him here in India, and we get to see so much of brilliance in his games. And I'll start with some of the games, and as we go on I will reveal. So for you, for those who are not sure who he is, wait till the end, I'll definitely reveal. So we start with his game against Abhijit Gupta, a grandmaster from India. So he played white here, and this was a rare version of Sicilian. So this anti-Sicilian is not played so often, but it's a decent line. And after knight f6, h3, black did not take the pawn, of course, because of queen a4 check. So this is a standard trap which top players don't fall into. And after knight c6, bishop d3, d5, e5, knight d7, bishop b5, queen b6, queen e2, we reach an interesting position where Abhijit Gupta played c4. Now after c4, he took bishop into c6, and after bc6, he played e6. So such sacrifices are quite common in his games, and it's not very clear sometimes if these sacrifices will have something in return immediately, but he keeps the pressure going, and you will see that in a lot of moments in his games. So after f6, he just castled, and after g6, he wants to make sure that he develops his bishop, and then he plays b3. And then after b3, cb3, ab3, of course taking this pawn is too risky because black's king is in danger, is in the center, so he will definitely look for castling very soon. And after bishop g7, here white played knight g5, and then pawn on e6 is attacked. Of course a move like knight c5 is possible here, but he must also consider b4, or let's say if black plays e5, then white has d4. So the objective evaluation is still unclear. Maybe black can play a lot of different moves, but practically it's not so easy. Now in this position he went e5, and then white played d4, and then after bishop f6 he simply put rook to e1, and then after e4 he played b4. Now in this position here, of course, rook e1 is debatable, but the way he plays and the positions he creates is what I am interested in this position. So after rook e1, e4, b4, knight f8, he played rook a5, avoiding any kind of a5 in the future. And then after bishop f5, you will actually get into what he is trying to do. So he played rook a5, he got his knight to g5, you will see his idea soon. He played g4, pushing this bishop away from f5, and after bishop d7, he goes knight d2. So only now it actually begins to become clear as to what his idea was. And after knight d2, it's not so easy for black to find the best move in this position, because the move knight takes e4 is inevitable. For example, if black plays something like h6, white is more than ready to play knight ge4. That is his idea anyway. So in the game, black played queen c7, and he went with knight de4. So this is the first moment which I liked very much. And after de4, knight e4, knight takes f6 is threatened. So black has to cover it. So he plays knight e6 to cover it. But that doesn't solve all the problems, because white has g5. Now the point being that if bishop goes to g7, he has this knight c5, and knight c5 cannot be taken because of the mate on e7. And that means three pieces are actually attacking e6 knight. So here there is no defense. If you play queen d6, the knight is lost anyway. And you can see, plus the position is so bad for black when it comes to pawns. So then in this game, after g5, he went castles, and now without giving any chance, white finishes off the game in style. He plays gf6, and after ef6 develops with tempo with bishop h6, and then after knight g7, maybe I'll give you a moment to figure out what you would do as white. I'm going to reveal the move now. He played queen c4 check, checking the black king. And here if black plays knight to e6, there is obviously the rook hanging here. You will at least get an exchange, and probably the game also very soon. And then after queen c4 check, if black plays king h8, then white can play different moves. A move like d5 also is good enough. But in the game, Abhijit Gupta played bishop e6, allowing white to play d5. And then bishop d5 is not possible because of rook d5. You can see the queen is hanging. And then after bishop takes h3, he finishes off the game in style. He plays d6 discovered check, and after queen f7 there comes knight takes f6 check, and after king h8, again a good moment for you to figure out what you would do as white. So he played rook e7. Queen takes c4 is not possible because of unbelievable bishop to g7 checkmate, a very sweet mate. So queen takes f6 happened, and then after bishop g7, queen g7, rook g7, king g7, queen d4 check, and then rook e5. Abhijit Gupta resigned. So this was one of the favorite games for me when it comes to this particular player. Now, after this, I want to show you another game, but this time with the black pieces. By now, some of you must have already understood who I am talking about, but let's go with this game. This game happened in 2010 and I saw this game live. I played this tournament in Bhubaneswar, and I still remember how the table was crowded with a lot of players, and they were all trying to figure out what's actually happening in this game, because there were some mind-blowing piece sacrifices. So without delaying further, let's go into the game. This is a French, and this particular player plays a lot of French and with both colors. He plays it with both colors, and I'm coming to the important position after knight d4. So he plays knight d4 in knight sacrifice first. You can see that the bishop and queen battery is lined up towards h2. The reason I did not ask you to guess this move is the beauty comes later, I feel. After knight takes d4, his opponent took knight takes d4, and after bishop takes h2, king f1 is not possible because of the mate. I hope you see the mate. It's a very nice mate. So king h1 has to be played, and in this position rook takes f2. I feel this is a very important position. You can also set this position against a friend or a computer and try playing this with both colors. This is a good training example for white as well as for black, I feel, because there are a lot of options white has and it's not so clear what to do. It's a good training position. Now black has no immediate threat, but it all depends on how white reacts. For example, if you make a dumb move like, let's say, rook b1, then there is a threat. For example, knight check, and then knight check, and then after king h1 there is queen g3. So then this is quite powerful, queen g2 is coming, and if you play a move like, let's say, rook g1, he can simply take this bishop, and then there's a mate going to happen very soon. So it all depends on what white wants. For example, in this position, you can prevent knight g3 by playing rook e3, which is one of the strong moves for white. But black still has a lot of initiative. He can play bishop d7, bring the rook, and it is black who has pressure. I mean, he's able to pose a lot of threats. You can see that in this position, black is a piece down, but he's still able to pose threats. And if you look at the evaluation, it's not clear. So despite being piece down and the evaluation is not clear, which this itself tells you the power of black's initiative here. So after rook f2, I think rook e3 is one of the possible moves. You can also play queen g4, but these are computer recommendations. When I saw this position for the first time, I felt it's completely gone, but it's actually possible to play on. And but I still feel it's not so easy. And then after rook f2, he played knight takes d5. So this is a moment for you to think what you would do as black. Would you play e5? Would you play rook to g2? Would you play knight g3 check? Or would you play queen g3? There are different moves. In this position, if you play e takes d5, I'm sorry to say this is a mistake because white has rook e8 check. And then if you play rook f8, he can simply take rook takes f8, king takes f8 and play queen f3 check. And all that attack which I was talking about suddenly feels very dry. So definitely not e5. Then if you play rook g2, you can see that knight c7 is hanging. Knight g3 is not a mate because your rook is hanging. So rook g2 is ruled out. Then if you want to play knight g3 check here, he can simply take king takes h2, and after knight f1 double check, still not enough to win because white has king g1 attacking the rook and the queen. So that means the correct move here is queen g3, threatening checkmate in 1. Now if you play a move like bishop f1 to desperately defend the pawn on g2, there's queen takes g5. So in this position, he went knight e3 to defend against the idea of queen g2. But here he played queen h3. What a stunning move, isn't it? I'm imagining the kind of pleasure he must have experienced while playing this move. So queen h3, what a move. gs3 is not possible because of this, again, a very cute mate. So you see a lot of new checkmating patterns when you look at his games. And then in this position after knight e3, he played queen h3 and then bishop f4 happened, and then he simply took rook g2. Because of course this cannot be taken, and if he takes knight g2, then there is anyway playing bishop g3 check followed by king g1, and then mate in 3 follows after check, king f1, and then knight takes f4. There is queen h1 mate, queen g2 mate, and if you move the knight, there is queen f2 mate. So it's game over. So in the game, Vokarov Sergei played bishop f5, and then after gf5, knight g2, bishop g3, king g1, knight takes f4 happened, and there is a forced mate to follow. So this happened in 2010, and the Russian GM, I still remember how I felt when I saw this game. Incredible, isn't it? Now let's go to another game in which he played white against Indian Grandmaster SP Sethuraman. And here again you see the same line which he's employing. But let me go to the critical position. The critical position comes after knight a5. He plays a rook d5. For a moment it feels like this rook is just keeping an eye on e5, probably keeping an eye on f5, and he just wants to just put the rook there and see what black wants to do. But after rook d5, Sethuraman played b6, and now comes a very interesting move. This is obvious to some people, I know, but I like it anyway. Rook takes f5, and after g takes f5, he plays knight g3 or knight g5. I'm sorry. So when I looked at this position, I was thinking about knight g3, and that's why it just came naturally. But yeah, I think knight g3 is very interesting, and after e6 you can go knight h5, posing bishop f4 as a threat. But in the game he went knight g5. Now objectively this is not the best move, but his ability to pose threats is what makes him who he is. So after knight g5, he still carries on with a lot of threats. So after h6, queen h5, hg5, bishop g5, queen e5. In this position he is actually a rook down, but it's not easy to face him. I have played him many times and I know he plays fast, and then he creates a lot of threats and he's usually attacking. So this combination is very hard to meet, and I can understand why it was difficult for Sethuraman to face this position. Though to some extent he did play accurately. He played rook f d8, and after gf8, gf5, king f8, king h1, knight c4, rook g1, knight d2, and after f3, I think this is the moment in which he went wrong. So after f3, he played rook d6, and it's not easy to believe that this is the move that that led to his downfall, because it looks very normal to prevent f6, and f6 seems like a vague threat, but it's not really clear if it's that if the threat is real or not. But after rook d6, you know, it suddenly appears, and then after rook d6 he simply plays queen g4, which is the best move. So he's actually known for this killer moves which may not really have an immediate threat, but it's a long-term threat. So in this position, queen g4 is the threat is dependent on what black does again. So here after queen g4, if you play a move like queen e2, you are safe. You're still in the balance. Then bishop d1, queen e5, and then bishop c2 is a computer kind of draw. But in this position, after queen g4, he played king e8. And now in this position, if you play a move like a6, let's say, pass, then white has f6. The point being, if you play ef6, there is bishop f4, and this, you see, with bishop f4 the queen is now open to attack on g7, and if you play a move like rook takes f6, there is bishop into d2 again, renewing the threat of queen g7. So this is a threat, and he played king e8, and in the game white played bishop f4, queen d5, bishop into d6, e takes g6, queen takes g7, and then the rest was easy because the king is in a bad position, the knight is in a bad position. Why I call this knight in a bad position? Because about to get trapped. He played bishop d1, just supporting pawn on f3. Knight f3 is not possible here because of queen g2, pin that wins. So rook e8 happened, and then after queen d4, cd4, rook e3, king g2, rook d3. I really like the last move of this game. He played bishop c2, and after rook d4, he simply played rook d1. This rook is hanging, and if black plays king c6 to support it, that's what happened in the game. He simply finished the game with h4, and there is nobody to prevent this. If you go and stop this, then the d2 hangs. If you play knight f3 in this position, simply king f3. This is the position in which Sethuraman resigned, and with that I finished showing you one of my favorite games. Then let's go to the next game. So the next game that I have will probably give the details, because I'm sure by now you must have already understood, but just to keep up with the tension or the suspense that I've created in the beginning, I'll go to a critical position after this moment. Knight f6 check happened after king d6. I think this is where it all begins. The position seems winning for black, but after rook takes f5, g takes f5, g6, it's not so clear. You see, it's a race. 2 moves and the pawn is about to promote. So he played, his opponent is Karthikeyan Pandyan, and this happened in National Senior Championship. Again, I saw this game live, and rook b2 happened, and then after g7, let's say, he can play rook b8 and g8 queen, then rook takes g8, knight takes g8, and then a5. This pawn cannot be stopped. You can see that the king is out of zone. This king can never stop the pawn, and neither can the knight. So this is the crux of the idea. So you cannot really push the pawn. But after rook b8, he doesn't push it. He plays king f4, he brings the king, and then starts the race. Black goes on the queen side, white goes on the king side. Who will win? Let's find out. After a5, king takes f5, a4, knight e4 check, king e7, he goes king g6. This is a kind of position which is even difficult for the computers to comprehend initially. And then after a3, f4, a2, f5, a1 queen, you can see in this position that black is a queen up, and black has a rook for opponent's knight and 2 pawns. This is one of the most fascinating positions I have ever come across in chess. To be very honest, after f6 check, king e6, knight g5 check, king e5, f7, queen a8, preventing g8 or f8. This position, friends, is a draw. And he plays knight f3 check, and they agreed to a draw because after king e6 there is knight g5 check. But I did figure out what's actually happening after the other moves. Let's say after king e5, if white wants to try, he can play knight h7, and then the game will still end in a draw with king f4. Of course, this is all computer. After f8 queen, everything gets exchanged, and then the king collects this pawn, the knight collects those pawns, and it's going to be a draw. So it's that way. But if not, let's say if not king e5, if black plays king f4 directly here instead of going e6, then you just play knight d4 as if nothing has happened, as if the knight is just walking in the garden capturing the pawn, and then knight e6 check is threatened. So then king e5 or king e3, and then he plays knight e6, and then c5 happens, let's say, just so that he's ready to capture this pawn, and then f8, everything gets exchanged, and ultimately game ends in a draw. So this game ended in a draw with a perpetual, and I feel this is one of the most fascinating positions I've ever come across. But to put it in a different way, the reason why I like his games is because he's able to create those situations. He's able to go into those positions in which such fascinating positions arise. Now, with this last game, I'm definitely going to reveal who the player is. It is IM Ratnakaran, Kantholi, and is from Kerala. He represents Indian Railways, and this game, which I'm going to show you, has been covered by countless YouTube channels, different magazines, articles, you name it, it's there everywhere. So the main point here is his move after cd5, the queen sacrifice that follows with knight takes d5. I think this is heavily analyzed everywhere, so I kept it at last so that I need not say much because this is known. After knight d5, bishop takes d8, knight takes c3. bc3 is not possible because bishop c3, queen d2, bishop d2, king d2, and then the d8 hangs. So he played queen b3, and then knight takes e2 check. king takes e2 is bet by knight d4 fork, and that's the reason he cannot really take on e2, so he has to play king d1 and then knight e d4, and then queen is forced to move. The only decent square is the e3 square, and then he doesn't take it. He plays bishop e6. Do you notice the pattern? Those killer moves. Bishop e6 as if nothing has happened. And in this position, if black takes bishop c7, he was probably even ready to play a cool move like rook c8. But in this game, Mikhail Michelishvili, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, I'm not sure. He's a Georgian grandmaster, but let's stick with Mikhail. So he played bishop g5, and in this position, he played h6. And if bishop f4 in this position, he was going to probably play g5. And his opponent played bishop f6, making it difficult for him to castle. But that didn't stop him from getting better in the position. He just took gf6, and black is heavily better because of this king on d1. And then after king c1, he simply castled queenside, and this is an overwhelming position. Black is better here. But after bishop h3, I think this is the moment where he went slightly wrong. He played bishop c5. So this bishop move gave some relief for white, because white has bishop takes f5, taking the advantage of this drawback that the bishop on c5 is hanging. But after that, Mikhail was not able to withstand the pressure and the consistent threats that Ratnakaran was posing. Eventually, Ratnakaran was able to win. He got all his pieces into the game, and this position after rook check, king b2 was a mistake. King c2 could have given him some more chances, but practically it's not so easy. So the end was this way. After queen h5, he got his rooks, and after rook g7, this rook g1 threat is deadly, and that decided the game. So those were some of the games that I loved of Ratnakaran, and I've also played against him and have had great experience. So yes, so this is dedicated to him. So happy birthday, Ratnakaran. If you are watching this, I had great pleasure covering these games, and I wish you the best in all your games in the future. And we hope that you will continue to play enterprising chess like this in the future as well. Wishing you all the best, and thank you all for watching this video. Do subscribe to our channel if you are new. I'll be back with another one soon. Until then, take care. Bye bye.